Elon Musk's Twitter controversy over the state of the war in Ukraine was back in headlines yesterday after Senator Lindsey Graham called the tech CEO out. Quote, "With all due respect to Elon Musk, and I do respect him, I would suggest he needs to understand the facts of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. While we're at it, maybe the Congress should revisit the electric vehicle tax credit boondoggle. It is where the credit is now solely benefiting electric vehicle manufacturers who have increased prices equal to the tax credit."
Musk responded in part, "Assuming you believe that the will of the people matters, we should in any given conflict region support the will of those who live there. Most of Ukraine unequivocally wants to be part of Ukraine, but some eastern portions have Russian majorities and prefer Russia." So I thought this was a pretty smart reply, actually, from Elon Musk, making a reasonable point. Like, yes, most of Ukraine did not want to be invaded, does not want to be part of Russia. Zelensky is very popular, and what Russia is doing there is unconscionable. But it is true that some of those easternmost regions had a desire, a strong desire, to be part of Russia, and it does get into a kind of, and then set aside the Lindsey Graham kind of. I can't risk offending you right. or your fans.
So obsequious. I promise. I really do respect you. Please don't hurt me on Twitter. Please don't send your Twitter hordes after me.
But look, self-determination is an interesting question because I think many of us would, in theory at least, say yes, that is correct. Mm-hmm. That right. I don't want to force a population of people to be under one government or under one country if they want to be under another. Now, of course, we could say that until we're blue in the face, but like if, I don't know, if the state of Michigan said we would rather be part of Canada, that would never, the United States wouldn't let them do that.
I mean, Texas has been trying.
Well, they haven't let them do that, and they haven't, or even smaller levels, like what if my apartment building, we all agree we don't want to pay taxes in the United States. Fine, we don't need your police services or your whatever, we'll just form our own little micronation, that would also not be allowed. So I actually think this is an interesting philosophical question. When is a movement for self-determination real and legitimate enough that some authority should say, yes, you should be allowed to disassociate? It's not an easy question at all.
And usually wars are fought over these things. Right. It's how America got free.
And under our Constitution, one of the only legitimate ways that you can carve up a new state is in conflict. So West Virginia exists because during the Civil War, when Virginia seceded, there were enough people. This is a self-determination case. There were enough people in that part of Virginia that wanted to remain part of the Union. So it was authorized under the Constitution to chop that into a different state and keep them with us. I think to split California technically, right? They would need to rebel, and then we could carve them into 3 states or something like that.
I mean, look, I think that there's a perfectly reasonable pushback that says, and I saw Elon Musk had tweeted out some maps of the last, poll that had been done in the region that did show the easternmost regions being heavily in favor, red on the map for Russia affiliation. But there's a perfectly reasonable argument that says people's opinions change over time. The effect of the Russian invasion might have colored people's opinions. You don't actually know what the outcome of this kind of democratic temperature taking will actually be, and fair enough. But the question is, regardless of the outcome, isn't taking a test of the temperature like this better than the alternative, which is presuming that you know what people want? Now, I do think the other criticism to your point is, who are we to say that we should put on the table for another country that a significant part of their territory should break off? Fair enough. But after we've had all of this media coverage, not only about America's involvement in Ukraine for a long time now, since before the 2014 coup, when we see news stories coming out of The Intercept about this long-term CIA's involvement in the region, when we see all of this, we're currently invested to the tune of $80 billion plus in the region. And when you do have the reporting that we've covered on this show about the extent to which peace deals have been on the table, that the NATO alliance is basically rejected out of hand at the U.S.'s urging, then it starts to become, I think, a more reasonable expectation that we find some other nexus of authority other than the West and NATO. And placing it in the hands of people in the country and in the disputed regions does seem reasonable. And that the objection is the objection to it is because it is a peace peace-leading intervention as opposed to all the war-leading interventions that America seems to have an appetite for.
Right. Musk suggested on Twitter that there should be, end the war, no more war, and then a UN-monitored election, and then whatever the will of the people should be the will of the people. That's how countries should form. In Europe, for centuries, the heads of the very, Germany, and actually not Germany so until recently, Prussia, right? Mm-hmm. And the Holy Roman Empire and France and England would just, they'd say, okay, we're done fighting for now. You take, this territory, this province is yours now. And it didn't matter what the people thought. It didn't matter if they were more culturally Italian versus French or something. And and then there was more wars because those people were unhappy about that. So that's not the right way to form countries, is just for large, powerful governments to say, okay, you people go with them now. But there has to be some, we want, some democratic process, some peaceful process for allowing new nations to form and allowing people to affiliate, because everyone deserves to live, under a regime that they find minimally repressive and can tolerate.
Yeah, it's interesting. The self-determination question obviously is one that has caused many, if not most, political conflicts across the globe. Yeah. Large swaths of the world are reckoning with the borders that have been imposed upon them due to colonialism.
Africa,
obviously,
still dealing with
Africa, the Middle East, Israel, Palestine, over and over and over again. You see that this is the problem. So, there is something to the idea, especially from a kind of a conservative libertarian mindset, that says, isn't the maximal peace that we can have and maximal autonomy we have shrinking and that's the whole point of federalism and statehood and all these other kinds of things, and preserve. The problem with nation building is that there are these powers that we believe like a larger entity should have, like having a military, like having a certain degree of infrastructure, so that we can have economies of scale, and figuring out what that looks like in a world that also allows a sufficient level of self-determination and kind of ethnic determination, the things that are, I think, less artificially controlling territories. It's an ongoing question. It's potentially the question of our time.
And one thing, it seems that most libertarians and left-leaning people, and also everyone can agree on, is that government tends to be more effective or more easier to live on the more localized it is. The more direct input and say and control you have over it is at least an ideal to strive for. Then there's, I guess, some impracticalities that make it not.
Yeah, that's the ongoing negotiation globally and here on Rising.
Well, that's all for today. We'll be back to get into next week's news next week. That's when we would do next week's news, wouldn't it be? It would be next week.
That's right. And in the interim, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Well, it's been a week. We'll see you next time. And check us out on all our new stuff, Roku included. That's exciting. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but I keep promising to do it and then report back. This weekend I actually will.
We'll hold you to it, Robby.
See you later, guys.